Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final session of the country review day, where we turn our attention to the human rights situation in Egypt, a country where repressions has become systematic and deeply institutionalized. Since the 2013 political shift, Egypt has seen a steady increase in arbitrary arrest, enforced disappearances, torture in detention, and the near total erasure of civic space. Tens of thousands remain behind bars. Journalists, activists, lawyers, and ordinary citizens may detained without trial under vague accusations like spreading false news or belonging to a terrorism group. Freedom of expression is under attack in Egypt now. The judiciary lacks independency, and the case recycling is being used as a legal tactics to keep detainees imprisoned indefinitely. Yet, despite this grim reality, there are individuals and organizations continue to monitor, report, and fight for justice. Today, we are joining by three of them. Ahmed Atallah, the Executive Director of the Egyptian Front of Human Rights, here with us in person, who will speak on the targeting of the human rights defender and the situation in the country when it's coming to the national dialogue and the tactics that the government is taking now in Egypt. In online, we have Muhammad Lotfi, the Executive Director of the Egyptian Commission for Rights and Freedom, who will address the situation of the enforced disappearances and torture and the situation inside the detention facilities in Egypt. And Osama Muhammad Olu, Egypt Research at the Committee for Justice, who will share data and insight regarding the situation for labor rights in Egypt. Let's begin these important discussions. I will now hand the floor to Ahmed Atallah. Please, Ahmed.
Thanks, CFJ, for this opportunity and the invitation to participate in this event. My intervention will focus on the 2 points related to the governmental initiatives claiming improvement in the human rights situation. Firstly, I'll focus on the gaps of the national dialogue and national human rights strategy. Regarding the national strategy for human rights, despite the establishment of new prisons as part of the strategy to improve detention conditions, Egyptian Front for Human Rights and other human rights organizations documented several violations inside the new prisons, including visit prohibition, inhuman treatment, and lack of medical care. Regarding the fair trial, contrary to the claims of Egyptian authorities that the drafted criminal procedure could aim to promote criminal justice, the drafted law undermines several human rights principles for defendants, such as the right to defense. And despite the lifting the emergency law, the Egyptian authority expanded civilian trials before military courts in accordance with amendment to the law on the protection of public and vital facilities. It also amended the anti-terrorism laws to increase the penalty for violating counter-terrorism measures taken by the state, replacing fines with life sentences in accordance with the emergency law. Regarding the torture, contrary to the Egyptian authorities' claims that they conducted investigations against police officers accused and convicted of torture allegations, in 2022, a number of human rights organizations demanded an investigation into the suspected death of economic researcher Ayman Hahoud due to torture after his family received news of his death 2 months after his arrest by national security. At that time, the public prosecution closed the investigation into the case without determining the real cause of this death and without holding anyone accountable. In the same context, the court sentenced 9 people to life imprisonment because of leaking a video showing that they have been subjected to torture in First Al Salam police station. All the accused were also placed on terrorist lists and placed under police surveillance for 5 years. On the other hand, regarding the National Dialogue and Presidential Pardon Committee, that actually started to claim that there is improvement in human rights situation. So, despite the reactivation of the Presidential Pardon Committee alongside the call for the National Dialogue, its work has been marked by extreme delay and lack of seriousness. And after 2 years of the committee work from April 2022, there is at least more than 2,500 individuals detained in cases related to the political opinions were released. And also, sorry for that, more than 2,500 individuals detained in cases related to political opinions were released, either through bails or presidential pardons. In contrast, more than 6,800 individuals, so we are talking about 3 times of these numbers, faced investigation by the Supreme State Security Prosecution during the same period on various charges. Regarding the National Dialogue, several urgent and critical human rights issues were excluded in its rounds, like enforced disappearance, which was absent from the agenda of the Human Rights and Public Freedoms Committee in the National Dialogue. And participants in the committee didn't discuss the issue or use even this term, enforced disappearance, in their discussions. Among the issues also were that were completely ignored in the significant expansion of by the Egyptian government in implementing the death penalty, reaching the high level in the country's history. Also, the issue of discrimination based on sexual orientation was completely ignored within the committee work, and also the practice of rotation was also ignored in this discussion. By the way, rotation means that adding defendants on other or new cases based on similar accusations to make them to make that they will remain in the prison as long as they can. So, in the second part of my intervention, I'll focus on the examples of repressions, especially against the freedom of assembly and association that accompany the implementing of the National Human Rights Strategy since 2021. Okay. So, regarding the last presidential elections that took place in 2024, human rights organizations have monitored the arbitrary arrest for more than 100 citizens who participated in opposition electoral campaign, and as defendants in state security cases, they are prosecuted under charges such as joining terrorist groups and publishing false news. In an additional more than 20 citizens have already been sentenced, including Ahmed Tantawi, a former prospective presidential candidate who have been sentenced to 1 year imprisonment for seeking to peacefully participate in the electoral process. Related to the economic crisis in Egypt, the Human Rights Organization documented the arbitrary arrest and enforced disappearance and accusation of terrorism charges of several citizens for expressing their opinions regarding the economic situation in Egypt on social media. By the way, there is a UN special procedure communication was sent to the government concerning the arrest of citizens due to expressing their opinions about the economic situation in Egypt on social media through Facebook posts and TikTok videos. It was sent in last July, but the government actually didn't respond so far on this communication. Furthermore, the human rights organization monitored the arrest of more than 100 citizens whom the state security prosecution charged them with joining terrorist group, participating in illegal assembly, committing a terror act, and vandalism, just only for participating on protest in solidarity with Gaza. This protest that took place in October 2023. So finally, in connection to calls for protest during COP27 in Egypt in 2022, Egyptian authorities arrested at least 700 individuals across 18 cities between October and November 2022. The authorities also targeted them for responding to call for not just for calling, but also for responding to calls for anti-government protests circulating on social media in this time. Amid an economic crisis triggered by a dramatic currency devaluation, the authorities also detained most of them under terrorism-related charges. Citizens were subjected to enforced disappearance for varying periods and then brought before the state security prosecution with forged arrest reports. The security agents also were stopping them in the streets, like forcing them to search their smartphone, even without any responsible suspicion, including their social media platforms, their Facebook or Twitter accounts, or something like that, or even personal messages and photos in public places in search for evidence of their involvement in political activities or criticism of this government. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ahmed. I will now give the floor to Muhammad. Muhammad, are you here? Muhammad Lutfi?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Muhammad, based on your work with the Egyptian Commission for Rights and Freedom, how would you describe the current situation inside Egypt prisons, particularly with regard to overcrowding, denial of medical care, and the use of solitary confinement? How conditions is in the Egyptian? If you could describe or give image to our colleagues here about the prison conditions in Egypt. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I wish I could make it to Gambia and be with you, but I had travel constraints and I couldn't make it to be with you physically. First of all, the prisoners' conditions in Egypt are very, very tough. Contrary to what the Egyptian government wants to promote as PR of new prisons with wonderful equipments and medical equipments and stuff like that, and the reality is very different. Those prisons, be it new or old, are completely under the control of national security officers. So a prison might have new equipment to treat prisoners who have diseases or chronic diseases. However, those prisoners, because they are political prisoners, because they are under the supervision of and orders of national security officers, they will not get the treatment. They will be denied the medical care. They will be denied visits from their families. And the ability to communicate directly with the families. The situation is so drastically, depressing for those prisoners that many cases of attempted suicide have happened over the past 2 years, and this is a new phenomena that we have been monitoring. Desperation of prisoners has led them to the point of breaking down psychologically and wanting to take their own lives. And this is a very dangerous situation. Obviously, some other prisoners do show their discontent and call for their rights to be respected. And by, for example, a recent example was for prisoners who appear in front of courts via video conference. They turn their back to the camera as a symbol of their protest against the inability of those courts to deliver justice, because they cannot find a judge that is gonna examine the legality of the detention. And Ahmed has mentioned recycling. A lot of those prisoners are people who have spent years and years beyond the maximum period of pretrial detention according to Egyptian law, and remain in prison accused of the same accusations, or were ordered release by a court at some point, and then were accused in new cases in what we call a rotation. And so what we have in Egypt currently, be it in prisons or for the situation of prisoners in general as a detainee, is a lack of faith that the judiciary is able to deliver justice, that the habeas corpus is being applied, that as a prisoner I'm able to challenge the legality of the detention. And as you said, indefinite detention leads to desperation and breakdown of the will of the prisoners, their dignity, their health. And a lot of them die, they simply die out of, after a few years of medical, like if you have diabetes or heart disease or kidney disease or lung issues or whatever, these are, if untreated over a long period of time, people simply die under those conditions. One of the reasons prisoners are sort of showing their anger at the moment at judges and in video conference sessions with courts is because they want to hug. They want to hug. Yeah, you listened well. They want to hug their relatives when they come to visit them. If you haven't, if you have a son who comes and visits you over 6-7 years, and you see him growing up, but you are not allowed to physically hug your son or your daughter or your relatives, brother, father, etc. That's all what they're asking for. They're not asking for much. Able to hug their relatives. Can the Egyptian government do that? Bear in mind that since 2020, Corona, that's 5 years ago. Corona was 5 years ago. Since 2020, prisoners are allowed one visit a month or 20 minutes by one, exceptionally sometimes two visitors. And this is in contravention with the prisons regulation and the prisons law. A pretrial detainee should be able to have one visit every week by 3 persons and for 1 hour. So if the excuse back in 2020 was Corona, I have news for you, Corona is over. Can we go back at least to the regular visits of once a week for pretrial detainees and once every 2 weeks for convicts? So what we see at the moment, Mifrah, is I think we need to toll the bell and say that some tragedies might happen in Egyptian prisons, in particular Badr 3 prison, where prisoners are starting to show signs of resistance to the arbitrariness they live in, to the continued detention they live in, to the lack of visits, lack of medical care, etc. And if we don't want to wake up in the morning one day and find that some tragedy has happened in one of the Egyptian prisons. So the Egyptian authorities, the African Commission, the experts in Africa, if you can toll the bell with us and tell the authorities, hey, people are killing themselves now in those prisons. You have to be aware that some simple measures, such as allowing more visits, allowing judges to examine the cases properly, and review the detention legality of the detentions under those vague terrorism accusations. These simple measures might give some hope to prisoners that maybe there is something there that they can hang on to and not do something bad to themselves or lead to a confrontation situation in the prison. What is in terms of numbers, just take 2024 as a snapshot. We have had over 2,200 new arrests of political prisoners and only 1,000 releases. So, if anything, now we have more political prisoners than beginning of 2024, and over 1,200 were rotated. Okay, that's not to speak about those who have spent more than the maximum period of pretrial detention, which is 2 years, according to the current Code of Prisoner Procedures. And Ahmed has pointed out to those protesters or attempted protests back during COP27. As you said, Ahmed, there are roughly 800 people who have spent now over 2 years in detention on the back of the same case, beyond the maximum period of pretrial detention, never referred to trial, and are desperate to join their families. Most recently, we have seen in 2024, towards the second half of 2024, state security prosecutors referring to court, over 130 cases referred to court for trial in front of two criminal courts, terrorism circuits. And so those who are now referred to court, and here I quote one of our colleagues, Ibrahim Azzeddin, who is a housing rights researcher. When he learned that he is going to stand trial, he's in absentia. Fortunately, he has been able to leave the country. But Ibrahim Azzeddin, I quote him, he said, "My referral to trial in Egypt is further evidence that the regime is not satisfied with the violation I have already endured, including losing 3 years of my life in prison and being subjected to torture. Instead, it continues its repressive policies by using the judiciary as a tool to eliminate dissent. This trial is not just a legal procedure, it is part of a broader strategy to silence voices and intimidate activists and human rights defenders, even those dedicated to advocating economic and social and cultural rights." So, as a victim of torture, as a victim of 3 years prolonged detention, as a victim of rotation and enforced disappearance, now he's supposed to stand trial, while those who tortured him or made him disappear or ordered his prolonged detention were never asked or questioned about those violations. Thank you.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you for your intervention and for your explanation regarding the situation in Egypt Detention Center and the situation regarding the political detainees. And now I will give the floor to Osama. But Osama, did you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Osama, the labor situation in Egypt rarely receives the attention it deserves, despite serious and ongoing violations. Could you, from the recent research or recent report for CFJ 2024 situation for labor rights in Egypt, what are the most concerning developments affecting workers' rights in Egypt now? And how are the independent unions and labor activists navigating their rights with the government? Could you give our colleagues here insights about this important issue?
I would start by raising few concerns which were raised by Egypt's new 2024 labor law, and I would focus on the right to strike and union independence. So, we say that Egypt's new 2024 labor law is being presented by the government as he said, as a modern update of the old 2003 law. But in reality, it reinforces restrictions and keeps workers under tight control from both business owners and the state. So instead of improving protections to workers, it makes it harder for workers to express their opinions, call for their rights, or to organize or go on a strike. And one of the biggest problems is how the new law makes it nearly impossible to legally strike for workers. The way it is now is that workers have to go through a long, complicated process, starting with submitting a request, getting approval in advance, and waiting for a very long time. Of course, the requests they made are most of the time ignored or delayed on purpose. These steps make the strikes almost impossible to carry out. Even though the right to strike is protected by international agreements that Egypt has signed, including the African Charter and the International Covenant on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights. Another serious concern is how the new law keeps trade unions under tight state control, especially under the control of the security forces. It continues to limit the formation of independent unions by making the registration very, very difficult. Authorities have now too much power to deny or cancel a union's license for vague reasons or without providing a reason. And in practice, only one state-aligned union federation is really allowed to operate. But the problem goes beyond just legal wording. We are now seeing a clear pattern, or let's say clear examples of retaliation against workers and union leaders who try to stand up for their rights. I will give a few examples. We just monitored and documented recently. Shadi Muhammad, a well-known labor activist, he was arrested and forcibly disappeared after years of being targeted for organizing a protest. To give context, he was previously fired from his job in 2019 for demanding fair wages for himself and for his colleagues. And since then, he was being harassed and followed until he was arrested. In another case, in October 2024, 6 workers were arrested after attending a conference to support people who had been fired unfairly from their jobs. 5 of them were kept in detention just for speaking up until now. Also, we documented just recently workers at Samanu Textile who went on strike over unpaid wages. They were punished by having their salaries cut, and some were suspended without proper process. Even the chairman of the company launched a verbal attack on female workers after both male and female workers stopped working for only half an hour to demand the remains of their March salaries. The last example is we also documented a sit-in. This sit-in was we documented a sit-in which included almost 1,800 workers at the National Greenhouse Company. The workers were demanding the implementation of the national wages council decision, which to increase their salaries to 7,000 Egyptian pounds, as their current average salaries are 3,500 Egyptian pounds. And to give you context, this is equivalent to $70. So instead of safeguarding the workers' rights, security forces came and arrested several of them. The public prosecution charged the workers with gathering, disrupting production, and resisting the authorities. And they are now being tried. The problem is that even the Ministry of Manpower does not help workers or listen to their complaints. In fact, sometimes they even help employers to press workers even more. They are just like the examples I give are just a few cases, but they show a clear pattern that the state is not only failing to protect workers' rights, it is actively punishing those workers who try to claim the rights or call for them. So, to sum up, the new law does not bring fair reform. It blocks the right to strike, limits union freedom, and allows the government to crack down on any workers who challenge the system. This stands in direct violation of Egypt's obligation under regional and international human rights law. And as civil society, we need to keep raising the workers' voices to push for genuine protections for them, not just on paper, but most importantly in practice for all the workers in Egypt. Should I now touch base on how can civil society and international partners.
Yes, so this will be the second round. Let us back now to Ahmed again. What we can do to protect victims and to protect the human rights situation, Egypt and North Africa countries as well as Sahel countries. Thank you very much for your participation, and look forward to meeting with you and to continue our work with all of you. Thank you very much.